Welcome to Acts of Awakening, a series of heartfelt conversations about the roles that we play, the masks that we wear, and the archetypes we embody. Acts of Awakening is a play place to unpack the moments in life that call us to change roles and dissolve masks, individuating us into the next version of ourselves. Together, we will explore the perspective of the cosmic play, inspiring soulful insights and a deeper understanding of the journey of becoming. Host Suri Sawyer is a certified death doula, Reiki healer, yoga guide, ancestral medicine practitioner, and multidimensional psychic. As a walking transmission, equal parts cosmic mirror, soul whisperer, and multidimensional midwife, she embodies the energy of a lucid dream, soft yet activating, grounded yet infinite. Suri weaves shadow and light without fear. Her essence feels like plant medicine incarnate. Her presence initiates recalibration and an invitation into introspection, remembrance, and sacred revolution. Now here's your host, Suri Sawyer.
Happy day to everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here on Acts of Awakening. As always, I'm going to start by sharing a couple of archetypes with you. And as you hear the nature of these archetypes, you have the opportunity to see if you resonate with it, if you play this role, or if you observe it in other people around you. If you feel strongly connected to either one of these archetypes, you can identify it within yourself and even give it a name so that you can start to communicate with and develop these different aspects within you. I'm really excited because the two archetypes that we have today for our guest are unlike any that we've done before. So the first archetype that we're going to review today is the wild man. So the light side of the wild man embodies primal energy, freedom, and connection to nature. He represents raw instincts, authenticity, and the untamed aspects of the human spirit. His presence can inspire courage, independence, and a deep understanding of the natural world. The shadow side of the wild man. The shadow side of the wild man can manifest as recklessness, impulsivity, and a rejection of social norms. He may become destructive or isolated, acting without regard for consequences to others. The gift that the wild man brings to society. When in balance, the wild man offers a reminder of the instinctual roots that impact us on a daily basis. It inspires authenticity and encourages people to embrace their own true natures, their authenticity, and also to respect the natural world around us. So that's a little bit about the wild man archetype. The next archetype that we have for our dear guest is the trickster archetype. This is one of my favorite to talk about, and it's not that different from the jester, which we've talked about several times on the show. So we've got a trickster jester on the show, and I'm praying for lots of good laughs. So here's a little bit about our trickster. The light side of the trickster. The trickster is clever, witty, and resourceful. He challenges authority and conventional wisdom, often bringing humor and insight. The trickster can catalyze change and reveal deeper truths through play and mischief. The shadow side. The shadow side includes deceit, manipulation, and chaos. The trickster can become destructive or untrustworthy when his mischief turns malicious or self-serving. The gift that the trickster brings to society. The trickster's true gifts lie in his ability to challenge the status quo, to spark innovation, and to encourage creative problem solving. He reminds us to see the world from a different perspective and to find humor and adaptability in adversity. So those are the two archetypes for today. Let me know if you resonated with them. And now, may I introduce our dear guest, Kyle Anker. Here's a little bit about Kyle and where he's coming from. So Kyle Anker is a soul forager, guiding revolutionary souls into wholeness so that they may claim their purpose and their power. He does this by walking the path of syncretic magick. He's going to tell us about it. Don't worry, guys. weaving ancient shamanic healing arts and contemporary psychosomatic therapies. His work is greatly informed by his original apprenticeship to the introspection of depth psychology, men's work, and Western medicine work, as well as many years of being mishandled and abused in modern day ceremonial spaces, resulting in a sincere focus on championing harm reduction and guardianship while reviving male rites of passage, which I'm very excited to talk to him about today. Kyle is certified in internal family systems. He is a Norse shamanic practitioner, Reiki master, and Kundalini practitioner. He is a student of animism, death, ancestry, and all things powerful and pagan. He resides in Costa Rica with his dog Jimmy and his cats Frigga and Embla, and an intrepid community of revolutionary persons and spirits. So let us bring on our Norse friend and magician, trickster, wild man, Kyle Anker.
Wow. It's so interesting to be introduced on a podcast. I'm usually in the other seat, and to let all those words sit squarely and firmly within my seat as I embody these two polarized archetypes of the masculine. Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me. Uh-oh. There we are. Froze for a second.
Thanks for agreeing to come on. Well, yeah. I'm curious if you'll share with us a little bit about why you chose those two archetypes to describe you.
Yeah, so these are the ones I feel most alive in me right now. And I'll start with the wild man, because that's the one that really started to help me understand the path of individuation from being a male into a man. Now, most people are familiar with the king, warrior, magician, and lover, and they have their place for sure. Maybe a bit antiquated and not complete in their stories, and also not honoring all the sub-archetypes in between. But the thing I've come to find out through navigating the original mythology of the wild man and a story called Iron John, which has been so expertly analyzed and poetically dissected by Robert Bly, who started the Mankind Project movement many decades ago, which is like the foundation of all men's work as we know it in the world today, including Sacred Sons, and they're all spawn of the Mankind Project. The wild man is what comes first. The wild man is like this vital, visceral, primeval understanding of what it is to be a man who is in tune with nature, as you mentioned in the beginning. And so it's my belief that without contacting this energy, you can't really make your way into the other four more formative archetypes that serve as a medium for how you interact with the world. The wild man is like the soul of man. And I like to also frame it in natural law and order. So chaos comes before order. The feminine comes before the masculine. And the wild man, per his mythology, is found at the bottom of a lake outside of the kingdom, covered in hair, like lake, the subconscious, the intuitive, the feminine. This is the yin of the masculine yang, being able to feel who we truly are before trying to create the structure and the order around it. And so being wild has been at the core of my work for the last handful of years, for sure, especially coming to Costa Rica and being foraged by the wilderness here. It's like you can't help but get a little feral. Yes. And then the trickster, wow. So the trickster, I was just delighted to realize that I really pulled in the alpha and the omega of masculine individuation here, because the trickster is something that I've known for a long time, but I'm finally feeling an embodiment of. My teacher once said, look for the people that have a grin about them. Like they walk and sally into life's challenges and strife with a grin. And others who study the archetypes will say that after the capitulation of the king, warrior, magician, lover, and integrating all that and becoming a man, the next revolution of one's maturation is the trickster. Now consider all the great sages and saints, Jesus and the Buddha, Zarathustra, they all spoke in parables and in poetry. That is trickster energy. They know what's going on, but they don't tell people. And they divulge their wisdom in a very curious and kind of like funny way, if you look at it, for sure. And so the trickster is also known as the Heyoka in Native American tradition, and like Loki in the Norse, like kind of not taking sides. The trickster is ambivalent and equanimous and challenges all directions, which makes a lot of enemies and a lot of allies, but it makes them impervious and invincible. But it takes a certain level of, let's just say, work to inhabit that in a safe way. Because as you mentioned, the shadow is what's mostly prevalent out there when it comes to trickster. People think about people like the Joker. Like the Joker is dark. Right, you know, he's kind of like a tragic hero, but he's dark trickster energy. And yeah, I mean, I feel a trickster now more than ever, honestly, coming out the other side of finally getting my father and letting go of all this need to show up a certain puritanical New England lower middle class blue collar work hard get it boy kind of energy. Whole separate story, but that's why these two are so alive for me right now.
With nature and the inherent wild man, which based on what you shared with me, it sounds like getting in touch with the wild man is the foundation before arriving at the king or the lover. Or
this
even
is
the
my belief. You're not going to find this in like common rhetoric around men's work, but this is, after reading both of the books around these things, is like, no, this has to come first. This is something I'm theorizing. It might be kind of my gift to the world when I finally pen it to paper.
Well, I really like this theory because it's been my suspicion that you can't go into the true lover or the true warrior or the true royal or king until you've actually really gotten into the warrior archetype, which to me, there's like a similarity between the wild man and the warrior, just in the rawness and the inventiveness and the quickness of mind and skill that you have to be in that role. And I also, speaking on initiation, it's my theory that part of the reason we have such a hard time in society right now, especially with the balance of men and women, is because we've lost the rite of passage of taking young men hunting, which awakens their wild man.
Could just notice that you am I making noise? So that's why I'm getting muted. Is there background? I hear motorcycles somewhere. I'm not sure who that is. It's not me.
It's me. Someone decided to play with their motorcycle right outside my window as soon as we started.
Of course, it's Costa Rica.
So
you were mentioning
I'm in California. This is a California.
Oh, you're not even back here yet. No, pardon. So it sounds like it. You were positing that entry in embodiment of the wild man is necessary for there to be healthy warrior energy, which I would agree. I think that is so incredibly lacking right now. I mean, just to touch upon rites of passage, they're entirely lacking, and most males, especially in spiritual communities, are not even close to being men. They play most in the magician and the lover realms, and they don't do a lot of work with the warrior or the king. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with the blowback we've received from the Me Too and similar movements, which is fairly meted out. There has to be some sort of atonement there for the generations of systemic oppression that we carry from our paternal lineages. And there needs to be a point where we start to step up and own our voice again. The warrior is something I want to really speak to here, because it is not the hero. The hero, which is all out there, the Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, blah, blah, blah. The hero is the problem. The hero is the mature boy psychology leading to the warrior. You have to become the hero first to be the warrior. But what the world needs is warriors, because the hero is the savior, the martyr. He's seeking challenge, limelight on the stage, looking for the dragon, saving the princess, wants rewards, wants the fame. That's not the warrior. The warrior is quiet and carries a big stick. You see the sword at his side, but he never wants to use it unless he has to. The thing about the warrior is he's very exacting with his word. And when I do men's circles, we have a warrior round after the opening lover round. And it's about being able to say what your grind is with another man in that space without people pleasing, pussyfooting, beating around the bush, without trying to be concerned about disappointing people and making them upset. It's like, you did this, that made me feel this, and that makes you that. And being wholly in your charge about it. Like, that's warrior energy. And that makes someone really trust you. And the sword is expression. The sword is our word. And so I agree. I think more than anything, warrior king energy is needed to balance things out with a lot of this beta male spiritual lover magician stuff that's way going to the other side. I get it. There's a lot of atoning to do, but we don't need to be prostrating ourselves at the knees of the dark feminine for the rest of our lives.
You just gave me so much. I'm not really sure where to start, but I just want to say to everyone who's watching, thank you so much for being here. Kay Weezy, I saw that you're here. It is great to see you. Amanda, thanks for being here. Kelly Brickle, thanks for tuning in. June, it's good to see you. Dana, nice to see you. Hi, Laura. And Dana says, welcome to you, Anker. And Luke, I've never seen you here before either. And it's really nice to have you. Thanks for coming. And Marie Taylor, it's nice to have you. And thank you, Ascending Universal Butterfly. Wow, that's a name.
I'll take it.
I'm very much into that. Thanks for being here. Okay, I want to come back to the concept of a rite of passage. And I've had a lot of people on the show talking about that, but they've all been women. And so I'm very thrilled to hear from you the concept of individuation as you are experiencing it in your male form over there.
Rites of passage. I love this conversation. It's very different for men and women, isn't it? Women are taking through their rites of passage naturally. You get your moon, and then you become older, and then you go through menopause. You're taking from maiden to mother to crone, whether you like it or not, when it's meant to happen. Of course, it's always best if you have women and elders around you to support you in that, but it's going to happen one way or another, and it happens in the right timing, generally, always. Men do not have that. We need to be ushered out of our codependency on boy psychology with the mother and the father, right? This looks different for all different tribes, but there's one story I love, which I got out of Iron John. The whole thing is staged. It's a big play. The chief and his top warriors, they come marching into the house, and the mother and her sisters and aunts are all like, oh my God, don't take our son away, oh, this poor boy. And there's some truth to that, because the mother will always want to keep the son close and to cuddle him for as long as she can, if given that possibility. It will happen. And so many boys are so attached to the mothers. I was one of them. I was raised by a mother. So they bring them kicking and screaming out of the home. All the women are out there in the village path into the forest, like just falling on their knees and wailing. They think they're losing this young boy who's like coming of age. You know, he's preteen, prepubescent. They bring him out into the forest. And in this particular tale, they toss him into a pile of like fire ants. And he's very, really hurt, you know, to the brink of like mortality. And then they save him. They administer some sort of psychedelic-like sacrament, sometimes blown through a pipe. And he has his primary religious experience, realizing he was saved by the men. And usually that primary religious experience has some sort of theater where it involves some psychopomp around what their deities are in that tribe. And when he returns, all the women, especially the mother and her sisters and aunts, regard him as a different person. And this breaks the attachment to the mother. It creates a whole new relationship with the mother on the return, and the relationship with the father changed out there. And so that is essentially what is missing in modern society. And what's happening, the soul finds its way to its breakthroughs. And the way it's happening is through a lot of breakdowns. So you can only cope with your wounds for so long. You can only cope for your soul's need to mature for so long, the grasping for sex, drugs, food, alcohol, whatnot. And now we have psychedelics and plant medicines. What I see happening to most men, and especially this is true for me, at some point, playing with these powerful medicines in spaces that aren't properly held by true elders or shamans, your rite of passage will come. Whether or not you understand it or someone's there to help you navigate it and make sense of it is completely game for spirit to figure out. But it's happening, and it's fucking messy right now. And a lot of people aren't putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. You're muted, or I don't hear you. I still can't hear you.
No.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. I was double muted. I want to touch on the concept that initiation oftentimes is incredibly painful and to some degree akin to some kind of trauma.
Ooh, did I say that?
No, you didn't. But in my research of initiations, it's traumatic, right? Like being pulled out of the house and thrown into fire ants, right?
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. The wound is important. It's like Rumi says, the wound is where the light enters. In a different mythology, the boy is told to look up into the canopy, and it's like someone dressed up as their god swings down on a vine and knocks his tooth out. And every time he tongues that place in his head, that hole, he remembers that experience. And that place is filled with the light of the patriarchal energy that comes through in that rite of passage. So yes, thank you for reminding me that the wound is essential for men. And as you understand too, the women have their own natural wounding on a regular basis.
And then there's it's interesting that relationship between the mother desiring to create protection and safety up to a point that's faulty, right? And what would you say is an appropriate age to begin some of these initiations from boyhood to manhood?
Usually around like prepubescence. They're getting flooded with all these hormones and these different signals, and they are internally being drawn towards different relationships to men and women. So you need to create the external shift to support that.
Yeah. And then what do you suppose in our modern society are some of the consequences that we see playing out because we lack initiation in our current state?
This is where I like to talk about the idea of the psychopatharchy.
Okay, let's talk about psychopatharchy.
Because, all right, so I got to back this up, and this is going to be fun. The patriarchy doesn't exist. It's actually a psychopatharchy. Let me break it down. Patriarchy's root word is patros. Patros means the father, the king. Those who are being pointed at and being like, no kings, patriarchy, they're not men. They're uninitiated boys, tyrants, and bullies. So here's my theory on what's happening, why I call it a psychopatharchy. In the lack of rite of passage, men aren't being born. They're not being groomed and brought into the world. Now, I understand that sociopathy and psychopatharchy, psychopathology is a disease. But in the absence of men, people with that mindset will claw to power rapidly. And with the lack of rite of passage, they have all the fertile ground and minds they need to groom psychopaths to walk in their stead. That's what I believe is happening. And if you look at just the basic definitions of sociopathy and psychopathy, lack of empathy, lack of humanity. There is no way I believe that things happening in the world could be continuing for this long if that wasn't true. If these people weren't literally psychopaths. If they actually cared about human beings, they would course correct by now. And that is the disease that we have. There are no men. And the thing is, patriarchy is not a hierarchy. Patriarchy is the external circuit that creates the loving structure and unfoldment for the internal circuit of the matriarchy to do its thing in full safety and protection and guardianship. So that matriarchy is already there. Y'all women have been working your asses off for generations to keep yourselves alive, insane, and safe. What men need to do, what males need to do, is to circle up around the fire, do the men's work, become men, and create that outer circuit so we can have harmony once more. It is the circular patriarchy, a true patriarchy. That's actually a big part of the solution of the world's problems. Sorry, but that's true.
Well, I like the distinction between what you're calling, hold on, socioarchy? Is that what
Let's
you
call it
called it?
psychopatharchy. That's more fun.
Psychopatharchy. Okay. I like the discernment between that and patriarchy because I actually fully agree with you on that terminology. We need to give it back to its honorable form. And I also liked what you were describing because it created for me an image of like a fire pit and like the patriarchy being like the fire pit, and within it's the fire that burns, which is the matriarchy.
Ooh, I like
And
that.
together they play and collaborate. I also, do you know the terms patrimony and matrimony? Like not in the sense of marriage, but they're different words to describe the role of the male and the role of the female.
You know, outside of traditional wedding and union, I don't know the deeper definition.
Essentially, it's based in this concept that the patriarchy is, or the patrimony is the remembrance of a cycle or a pattern. It holds the patterning. And the matrimony energy or the maternal energy is like the matrix that holds the pattern unfolding. And that you need both like pattern recognition and a safe place to explore. And those two things come together and create health and wellness in the community.
Interesting, because you always hear of like in divine matrimony, but where's the discussion of patrimony? How did that get occulted and hidden? I like that. And I love this little microcosmic fractal example of like the fire being the inner matriarchal circuit and the men sitting around the fire, like practicing literally being that patriarchal circuit on the outside. Ooh, I'm bringing that to the next men's circle.
I love it. Perfect. I'm also curious. Okay, so we've got the side effects of not having initiation rites for men in our modern society and how it affects. And you're saying something really bold, which I think is interesting, is there are no men. So
Well,
based on, well,
very
of course
few
there
men.
are.
And for you elders, but like most of the people in power who are being called the patriarchy, I don't think any of them are actually men. Not a single one.
All right. So in your definition, what makes a man a man? This is against a psychopath and a boy. What makes a man a man?
Ooh. All right. So to be a man, the experts in men's work, as far as you know it, you have to at least have ability to access the healthy side of the four major archetypes. And I would say also the wild man first. Men can't do this without a mentor. You need to find that second father that guides you along the way. And he's the one who leads you to your contact with the wild man, right? Working with wild man energy brings you to first contact with your own unique genius. You know, he says he puts his finger in the well and because it hurts and it turns gold. Like he puts his pain into this intuitive knowledge of what it is to be led by nature. And he realized there's brilliance to that. And so that indicates a relationship with nature that's very healthy, which also indicates a relationship to God. Wild man energy is having your own fervent and unbreakable faith in whatever you consider God. To be king energy, you have to understand that the king serves the kingdom, which is feminine, but the king receives his guidance by connection to God. The king does two things. He blesses others, he's generous, and he creates order. If a man can do these things on command at will, he's figured that part out. The warrior, like I said, can be exacting and discerning with his speech. He's not afraid of conflict. He's not afraid to step up when he sees something going wrong. And he's not afraid to be wrong in doing that. But he will always speak his truth and understand that his most potent weapon is the sword of his tongue. The magician is the builder, is the alchemist. So the man who goes out there into the world and collects the raw ingredients and material and can create something from nothing. To construct the order that is the healthy patriarchy is a key element of being a magician. And the lover, well, I would say the most important aspect of the lover right now for men to truly say that they've tuned into lover energy. It's to truly be able to revel in the mystery of life, but directly applied to that, how it shows up through a woman, not needing to make sense of her. If you can really be in awe and revel in her beingness, especially when she's in some sort of sensational fit of emotion, you know it's best not to step in and try to figure out what's going on, to remind her of agreements. Be like, stand back. Can you hold that space? Can you be that microcosmic patriarchal order within this fire, and then step in afterwards and create safety? These, to me, are some of the hallmarks of what it's like to be a man.
Thank you. Those are beautiful.
There's
a certain sense of almost selflessness in each of those that you described that I was picking up on.
That reminds me of one last thing.
Yeah.
A man is nothing without his purpose, his mission. His mission is more important to him than his woman. If a woman is his mission, she might find that cute for a while, but she will eventually grow to resent him. A man is willing to die for what he believes in.
Mm-hmm.
The glorious death on the battlefield, bring you to Valhalla. This is true for all the traditions. And that's what's on the line for men, to go out there into the unknown, knowing that he's serving God and he's got the support of his feminine, his woman under his wings the whole way. And that's what a man gets when he's a man and really drawing in the right woman. She supports him in his mission without question. There's never any doubt. Full respect and support just in her alignment energetically. And that's what is able to allow him to go there into the dark and fight the dragons that are coming to harm what is beautiful and holy. Not seeking them out, but he will die for that.
Mm-hmm.
Gladly.
Thank you for that. Anker, that brings me to my next question, which is, by the way, Osbite, I hope I'm saying that correctly, is loving everything you're putting down. Yeah. So I'm curious if you'll now share with us what your mission is. What keeps you like on point?
Well, my mission is to do my part to end the suffering of all beings. I know it sounds a little cliche, but I had that sort of like felt.
It also seems like quite a big mission, but I support you.
But it's how I do it, right? It's the way I do it. I recently came clear that that's what I'm doing in a very Gnostic sort of like feeling everything sort of way. Like I was literally reading a book about meditating from Buddhist perspective and how suffering and compassion are two sides of the same coin. I kind of put it down to contemplate, looked out the window, and I was feeling all of that just web and ebb and flow in and out of me, just feeling complete joy and just like elation for all the people I've known. And then just in this suffocating sort of grief for everything that they're going through. And I'm realizing, oh, this is me touching upon my why, like the deep core why of why I'm here. The way I do that is by helping people feel safe to explore who they really are, to revive the rites of passages we've lost, to syncretize what is necessary for the new ways of medicine and ritual that Westerners need, and to be a guardian at those gateways to help people understand what choices to make, what questions to ask, so we can freely pursue our own relationship with God without harm, without fear, without unnecessary risk of death or nearly losing our minds. Or yeah, that's it. And this is what my father and his fathers have done. Like, they're protectors, they're warriors, and I play it out in the spiritual battlefield.
Thank you for doing it. It's a beautiful mission. I'm very thrilled about it. We have a couple questions. Shall we go to them?
I will do my best to field them.
Okay, so Jennifer Rose wants to know this, which I think is fascinating. What is the percentage of individuated men in our general population? Do you happen to know that off the top of your head, Anker?
Absolutely not. And it's not because I just choose to like not watch the news, but I don't think we have those numbers. I think we're far behind any research or science. But I feel like at the very least, I could apply the Pareto principle here, the old 80-20. I think at best, 20% people are men. 20% of males are men. Probably less. Because the way I look at it is the real men are a marginalized community right now. They're only happening in like these sort of burgeoning consciousness seeking communities. It's very rare for our fathers and their fathers to really be men. Like there's all that old bravado, like John Wayne Western, those aren't men. They're really hurt boys doing their best. That grit, that shoulder, a dude alone, that's not a man. Like I thought that was my dad and my grandpa. It's not. They're really hurt and incapable of taking care of themselves, and they shut themselves out. So I think being generous, 10% of males are men in this world. Let's just say that.
Jennifer Rose, does that make you feel good about humanity? All right. My next question is, for the male initiation, it's almost always done by other men, right?
Yeah.
Other men in the community, fathers. Jennifer Rose, I'm sorry for that bad news, lady. But what, if anything, is a woman's role in supporting the men in our society to access their individuation?
Ooh. You've already been really patient. You're going to have to be more patient. What we need is encouragement. Every little step that we take forward into being vulnerable and to speaking our truth is incredibly nerve-wracking to most men. Don't coddle them, be like, oh, that's really great. Thanks for opening your heart. Find a way to show them respect for doing the things that are helping them become men. Whatever they do to kind of, you know, eddy towards their purpose or anything around showing courage in the face of adversity and what they feel is wrong. And any work they're doing to circle with men, like encourage that. Deeply encourage that. It's really easy for men to be shut down right now, especially when they start sharing their voice around what they feel. And they're not going to be in the right for a while when they start sharing their voice. A lot of what they're going to say is going to be parroted and emulated, and it's going to be kind of cringe. Receive that with curiosity, inquisitiveness, because as soon as they start hearing that it's not helpful, they're just going to clam back up and regress. I've been holding men's circles for like years here. And the first round is the lover round. And all I do is ask the men, tell me how you feel right now. Tell me why you're here. What's going on in your life? What's troubling? And it takes so much coaching still for them to name a sensation or an emotion. These are people who've done a lot of work on themselves, a lot of medicine, and they're still so up here trying to make sense of things, trying to create safety to say something.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I resonate so much with the encouragement, but not in a false way or a placating way, or even in sometimes in a nonsensical way, just celebrating you to celebrate you. But the difference between like a compliment and actually showing respect, there's something so different about both of those energies, at least in my being right now. And I love that feedback so much. Just show respect for the ones who are taking the movement toward individuation and initiation and finding out who they are and how to arrive there. That feels like something that I, as a female, am absolutely capable of upholding. I like that very much.
Yeah. And anytime you see him like moving towards his purpose or mission, like support that as much as you possibly can. Give him all the space he needs to go in that direction.
Thank you. We had another question in here. Let me find it. Jules wanted to know about unconditional love and does it fit into the equation of your beliefs?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like that's at the core of it all. You know, you have the king, warrior, magician, lover. It's four things. The fifth sacred thing is that. And that's why I think the wild man kind of precursors that. He's the one who's in love with life, with nature. He's like the Tom Bombadil of the archetypes. And I don't know if you're all into like Lord of the Rings geeky stuff, but like the reason why he's the most powerful creature in all of the lore is because he's just content with everything. He can't be bothered by the ring of power because he has no interest in power. He's in unconditional love with every moment. He's the wild man, honestly, the being man. Whereas like Gandalf is the doer. He's always trying to do things, fix things.
Unconditional love also takes a lot of extreme vulnerability as well as a lot of strength. I feel like in order to really like get into that unconditional love space, it requires actually all of the archetypes that you mentioned.
This is why I feel like it is most embodied by the wild man, because I feel like that needs to be understood and felt like in a Gnostic way before you can access the other archetypes, because none of them can show up in their light without unconditional love. I mean, they're all fallible. They all have their shadow sides. And even like the lover isn't about unconditional love, not that pure kind of like cosmic love. It's through relationship. It's the lover is how you relate with love to the world in the most like, you know, general tantric sense, like being able to just like be enchanted by birdsong or rainfall, for example.
Beautiful. All right, you've mentioned it a couple of times, but I feel like it's worth an exploration so that people can understand what a men's circle even is, and also how you use the archetypes for the groups that you run for them to be able to get to know themselves better. So you've mentioned it a couple times, but will you give us just like the rundown of how you use the archetypes to move through the men's circles that you run?
Yeah. So I organize and conduct my men's circles in the fashion that the Mankind Project does. Like I mentioned earlier, that was started by Robert Bly, who wrote the book Iron John, which was a whole essay of the myth of Iron John, which goes through the rites of passage in a poetic sort of folklore way. And it's 4 rounds of sharing, because it's good to have structure for men to know what they're doing. And it starts with the lover, goes to the warrior, then the magician, then the king. The lover round is like your typical check-in round. Each man gets a few minutes to share how he's feeling. And there's an invitation in sharing that story to notice what he might be withholding under the story. And to crack his heart open a little more like Hanuman and share something that feels a little vulnerable. All the men do that to start. Brings them that much closer together. They feel a connection through vulnerability. And they start to realize that what they're bringing to the table is not just them. And so that creates a little bonding, some fertile ground to move further. And then we bring in a polar energy that creates deeper bonds with the warrior round. And so if any man has a charge with another man in the space, he's invited to clear it by using warrior energy. No one ever does it exactly. They'll tell a story, they'll beat around the bush, they'll try to soften the blow. I'll listen for a bit and they'll be like, great. Now give it to him like this. You did this, made me feel this way. That makes you that. That is still so incredibly hard for a lot of men. And they love it. Sometimes a warrior round takes a half an hour. Once it gets going, they just want to get in there and just like, oh, you son of a bitch. Like, and so after those 2 rounds, like they're feeling really good. Like they have shared their truth from 2 very polar places. And that creates this fecund soil for transformation, which is the magician round. And that round, I invite everyone to meditate for a minute as if they were going to be the man, to be in the hot seat, to receive support from all the other men in the group. And they get to score their thing with their eyes closed from a 1 to a 5. A 1 being, I found my thing, but I'm good. I can take care of this if I don't get any help here. 5 being, if I don't get support and I leave this circle, me or someone around me is going to get hurt. This is important. And so that person gets all the time they need to share the story. And this is where the real magic comes, like, especially in these communities, because we're all coaches, guides, mentors, healers. And we all really get to lean in, surround this person, and just give them our magic and help them deepen their somatic, mythic experience of what's going on. which means not asking questions to bring them into their head, not giving advice for sure. That's where some really amazing stuff tends to happen for sure. I never had a man leave that round not feeling like he knows at least the next step forward. And then the king round is to close things out. Like I mentioned, the king does two things: creates order and blesses. The inner king was creating order that whole time, going through the first 3 rounds. So we focus on blessings here. And where I'm at with most of my men now, the best blessing that we can practice is acknowledging other men in the group for ways they showed up. So we each take a turn, share what we've harvested, some insights. If someone has a real prayer in mind, like they can go and bless us from the old gods, from something from Jesus, you name it. But it's also important for them to acknowledge at least one other man in the circle for where they showed up and how it inspired them. And that's kind of it. We hang out for some time afterwards. We usually go to Cappy Cappy, have a bunch of chicken wings and pizza, and integrate.
Sounds like the perfect way to end a men's circle.
Yes.
Thank you for breaking that down for us. And yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And I really appreciate how you use the archetypes to move through the sequence. I also love the imagery of a bunch of men loving on one man at a time. Like, because I don't see that. I'm curious for listeners too. Like, I don't see men gathering like that. And speaking honestly and openly that way that you're describing, as well as asking for help, and then receiving help. All of that stuff in my context of how men relate to each other, that seems fairly novel and new. And I love that you're bringing that forward for everyone to be able to have that experience.
Yeah, it's honestly my favorite thing to do is to circle with men.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started doing them some years ago, I was terrified. Every week, I would hope no one would show up. I'd pace around. I'd be like, no one's coming. It's going to be fine. And then people show up, and I'm like, oh. And it shaped me. Like, it turned me into the leader that I was here to be turned into. And it did play a major role in me literally becoming a man over these last handful of years. And some of you might be like, how old is he? I'm like, I'm 42. And honestly, all the experts in men's work say that males generally don't become men until like their late 30s, early 40s. This has been studied.
Yeah. Well, Carl Jung says that too. He says that the real individuation when you start to actually become yourself a man or a woman is at 40. So I resonate with that deeply.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fun question in here that I really want to bring forward. And it's based on a conversation I've had with many friends about what we're experiencing oftentimes of interacting with men, which is the dark magician, like the dark side of the magician and the dark side of the lover. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned earlier, go ahead. Sorry. I'm getting excited.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear from your perspective about the dark magician. And obviously, us women, we've got our dark stuff too. Like, we've got all kinds of like shadow. Like, I've got a Kali Ma in here. Like, watch out, you know? But that dark magician in the masculine presents itself in some really insidious ways. And I'm just curious if you have any insight for us and want to talk about the shadow aspect of the magician.
Specifically, the magician. Absolutely.
Or the lover, like you could or even the trickster. I think there's something similar going on in the shadows there. All
right. I feel like I want to start with the magician because there's a lot of medicine in these communities. A lot of foolish charlatans and grifters with their hokey pokey, leaky altars trying to sell you transformation that many people are desperate for. And they don't know how to ask for it, what to look for. And that is the dark magician energy that is preying upon most people. The dark magician energy is either like the manipulator or the deceiver or like the know-it-all, right? And he tricks people into thinking he has this amazing, grandiose knowledge and uses that to extract value from others. And, you know, it's interesting you mentioned this because it's kind of how I started my journey here in Chinipo. Like, there was a real dark black magic magician here in the community who was manipulating a lot of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed new women in this community into his like coaching container. Only women, and his wife helped to recruit them all. And when they were ready to be initiated in a ceremony, he's like, okay, now you're learning all this wonderful stuff because I told you everything about you with gene keys and human design without me telling you I was using your birthday for that. And you feel seen because I'm your guru now, and you're going to learn everything from me. And when they're in these ceremonies, he would rape these women. He would say, if you need to do this work, if you want to heal your father wound, you have to have sex with me. Sometimes as they're coming back from a 5-MeO journey. When I learned about this, I did not think twice about bringing that information to the attention of every psychedelic entheogenic community I knew about, which he was in some of them. And all those conversations are shut down. Like, it didn't stop me. Like, that man and his family were run out of this mountain. He was not allowed to go into any public establishments. And his dark sorcery affected some of my close friends. And so that's something that I look back on and I'm like, I did not think twice about my reputation, about the harm it might put me in. It's like, that man was lethal, mortally dangerous to people in my community, around people I love, a place that I want to live, not on my fucking watch. So that's
Dark
the magician. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's a great story, a strong story. Thanks for bringing it forward.
Yeah.
All right. You want to talk about any of the other shadows? Does anything stand out to you?
I mean, the lover one isn't as dangerous as the magician, but the shadow of the lover is kind of like the addict, right? The one who can't get enough, the one who's always chasing the dragon, and whether it's drugs, food, sex, alcohol, like, that's shadow lover. And there are a lot of people in that position. I wouldn't say specifically men, but the people who don't integrate. You've all seen that meme with a guy coming out of the cave, like following by his shadow. Like, that's dark lover. People who are enchanted and enthralled with the feeling, with the energy and the pretty lights, and they think that's the thing. And, you know, you gotta kind of have compassion for them, because most of us grew up without knowing what it's like to feel such bliss and joy. You know, of course we want more of that, but without the rites of passages and the mentorship to understand that that's not the point, and to be given such experiences without medicine, through loving community and relationship, in community where you integrate, because community is the real integration. And without that, you can't fault people for really going for it, but it's a really rampant one. Again, the dark magician, the dark lover are the ones to really look out for. The dark warrior is like, that's like the boys running the show, the tyrants, the bullies. You don't see a lot of that in spiritual communities because people are too afraid to do warrior stuff in general. But the dark warrior, the dark king, that's what's happening out there.
I see that very much, the dark. And Jules, I do know that I'm echoing. I'm away from home. I'm traveling. I'm doing the best I can. Hopefully we can lessen the echo. And Osbite is angry, I think, about the narcissism and the dark magician. So yes, I'm in agreement with you, Osbite.
Yeah. And just to name like the way that you can see shadow warrior energy, it's two things. There's a bipolar shell for each archetype. It's sadism and masochism. Those are the shadows of the warrior.
Sadism and masochism, the shadows of the warrior. And I do feel like we see that. And we also see the tyrant king a lot outside of us. But I think that ties back into the psychopathy that you were talking about, that's kind of ruling or having a huge like arc over the way humanity is driving itself in this current moment. It's been asked, Anker, I have a couple questions because we're coming to the end. People want to know if you teach how to do the men's circles. I think that's something people might want to be reaching out to you for. So do you train other men on how to run the circles?
You know, this is actually really fortuitous timing, because I am, with two of my brothers, about to launch like an online men's academy of sorts called The Fellowship, where we're going to be doing circles like this virtually. And yes, I do teach people how to do this. There's a dear brother of mine actually in British Columbia right now who's got a branch of this happening out there. And if you ask me, this is some of the most important work in the world to be done right now. So yeah, If you're interested in learning more, reach out to me. Probably gonna be launching that community in the next week or two. This one's like just for men, but if there are women who have some questions for me and need some guidance around masculine sort of support or energy, or want to ask for their loved ones who are men, like, please reach out. I work with women too, of course, but my specialty is the deep mentorship of men.
The deep mentorship of men. I love that a lot. And then I also will you share with us where we can find you? So if people are interested in connecting over archetypes, psychedelic integration, you guys, Anker is an incredible psychedelic integrationist as well, and a ceremonialist. So learn more about him right there at Kai.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat too.
Okay, perfect.
Every time I can't, it's not going. Well, it's there.
Yeah, I think Jennifer just put it in there for us.
Yeah, every time I put something in the comment, it shares like 5 times, but she has it there, so great.
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook is kind of my jam right now. I crank out content pretty regularly, so if you like what you're hearing here, you can get doses of this daily, multiple times a day.
Yeah, Anker's got some really good insight and theories, and I appreciate something that I really appreciate about you is the way that you deconstruct the archetypes and like are continuing the work of understanding them through both lived experience and through study, and also through working with other people. It's really incredible. I can feel you have a gnosis of like the map of archetypes, and it shows in the way that you speak about it.
Thank you. What I find really fascinating right now is to like go beyond the 4 major archetypes, because they are a great foundation, but I feel like even the teachings and the rhetoric about them is a bit old hat now. And I just read this fantastic book by Sophie Strand called The Flowering Wand, which kind of excavates the deeper history of like major masculine archetypes. And there's so much more to them. And I am much more interested right now, like Dionysus as the wild man, as like this masculine but really genderless and fluid sort of energy that's so deeply entwined with Jesus myth and being God, who was a god amongst men, and because of that he was made the enemy of the Titans and torn asunder. He is the reason why the word ecstasy exists. Ecstasy is what happens when he was torn limb from limb by the Titans. This is where the Maenads do this. When people find them, it's not because they're barbarians. It's like to emulate the ecstasy of feeling everything that we can as a human being. So yeah, The Flowering Wand, fantastic book. But if you haven't read King, War, Magician, Lover, or Iron John as a man, start there. And as a woman, if you want to really understand what's going on with men, read those 2 books first. Okay.
I wonder, maybe after the show, I'll put it in the comments for people to be able to find. I'll put it in the notes. Thank you for the invitation to read these books. I know that for me as a woman, understanding in this feminist masculine thing that's been happening, I can sense and see that this argument between these roles isn't helping anyone get anywhere. And I often see that like the feminism movement is often pushing down on our men. But like you were saying, we really actually need to encourage them to rise and give them a space to feel respected and honor them and praise them for the things that are respectful, while also almost limiting the coddling. Like no more coddling, just absolute respect for when you're showing up in the most beautiful ways, and love and care and tenderness when you don't show up in the best ways, but also accountability for those moments as well. So I've enjoyed this conversation a lot for myself, for the encouragement of how myself as a woman can support the masculine and the men to step into that outer circle and to be able to hold it with a lot of pride and honor and wisdom.
Thank you for having me. This was delightful.
It was delightful. I want to thank everyone for your attention. Thanks for bringing your attention here and lending your ears to our conversation. And I hope you guys will have a wonderful night. We'll be 2 weeks. Peace be with you.